there, everybody. Welcome to the Wealthy LaLa Show with myself, Laurie Laursen. How are you today? Hope you are having a wonderful day. And if it's not wonderful, I hope that you can find something within it, big or small, to be grateful for. I am truly grateful that you are listening, and so thank you for that. So today's Tasty Tuesday. And as I'm doing this, I may or may not share recipes every Tasty Tuesday. I might just share what's tasty for me. That might be about life. It might have to do with food, although I do really like food and I do like cooking. Yeah. So today I was going through some old recipes. Like, do you guys remember that where you actually had to write down recipes or you actually had to clip them out of magazines and stuff? And I have a couple of books that, gosh, I have no idea how old these are, maybe 30 years. Yeah, I'd say probably at least 25, maybe 30 years. And what it is like they're different recipes that I gathered over the years and that I put into this book so that I could access them, right? I mean, now in the days, this day of Pinterest and being able to access just about anything over the internet, I mean, we don't require to have cookbooks the same way or books where we keep our recipes. I still have a tendency to print off my recipes though, especially if I like it, then I keep it. I like to put it in a box and or keep a book like I have here now. But this morning when I was looking at recipes, I was like, well, where do I want to go with this? Is there a recipe that pops? Because as this radio show, I want it to organically be what it is, just like I want me to organically be what I am and who I be and how I desire to show up and what would be fun for me to show up that day. So that may be a recipe, it may be no recipe, it may be 5 recipes, like who knows where this will go. But as I was going through my book and I'm looking at these recipes that I've kept over the years and never used, I was ripping pages out. I came across one recipe that my mother-in-law gave me, gosh, quite a few years ago. Probably maybe 15, maybe 20 years ago. Her mom, so I guess she'd be like a grandmother-in-law. She ended up being diagnosed with diabetes towards the end of her life. So my mother-in-law would cook things for her, because with my grandmother-in-law, her name was Paula Laursen, Poula. It's a Danish name. She used to live on her own. So my mother-in-law would, whip up some things for her and take them to her house. So one of the things she made was these diabetic muffins. Now, I call them fruit muffins, not diabetic muffins, but they are for people that are diabetic. And I'm not a muffin person. You give me 1-2 muffins a year, I'm probably good. I've got to be in the mood for it. Maybe at a continental breakfast, or if I have some like coffee or something or a tea or whatever with it, or I go to someone's house and they serve them. But muffins usually aren't my first choice. These muffins are good. To me, they've got like a caramel soft texture. So I know you'd probably say, well, that's not caramel, Laurie, but if you get what I mean, if you try them anyways. So what you do is you take a cup of chopped dates, a half a cup of raisins, and just remember, I will put this in the recipe. I will either put a link to it or put the recipe itself right in the show description. So 1 cup of chopped dates, half a cup of raisins, half a cup of chopped prunes, and 1 cup of water. Then it says a half a cup of margarine and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So you put this all into a pot and you let it boil for about 5 minutes. So, usually once it's heated, you kind of let it go to medium and let it kind of simmer for 5 minutes. So it all sort of melts all together. And I happen to prefer butter over margarine just because I do. So use whatever works for you. And so after that has been boiled for the 5 minutes, set it aside. And sometimes if I want to do it faster, because I have really thick bottomed pans, so what I will do is I'll actually take it and put it into a bowl. And if I really want to do it faster, because I'm limited for time, I will actually take that bowl and even put it in the freezer and then just, check it out every like 5 minutes or something like that till it cools down. So you don't need to have it cold. You just need it so that it's not hot. It can be just nice warm, right? So then you're going to take 2 eggs beaten, and you're going to add that into the fruit, the cooked fruit stuff, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and then in another bowl, you're going to have had 1 cup of flour, and you've added to that 1 teaspoon of baking soda. So you want to mix that together. Then you're going to add that into the fruit mixture along with, if you like, you can do a 1/2 cup of nuts. I myself like things a little nutty. It goes along with my personality, so I do prefer the nuts, and some people don't. So I'm kind of getting the sense too, like I'm sure, well, it wouldn't be diabetic though, but if you're not diabetic, you could probably put a few chocolate chips in it. This would be really good. I have never tried that actually, but I wonder. So, but not for diabetics. Don't put the chocolate chips in unless you're doing like those cacao nibs or something that don't have sugar in them. They have these things you can buy on Amazon or buy in a health food store, but they're cacao nibs. And so they're like chocolate without sugar. And apparently you can replace chocolate chips with those in recipes. So after you've mixed all this yumminess together, you're going to place it in muffin tins. It makes 12. And you're going to bake it for 350 at 350 for 15 to 20 minutes. And and it says here, again, my family's not diabetic, but the diet exchange is 1 muffin equals 1/2 cup of fruit exchange plus 1/2 a fat exchange for those that require that information. And again, it'll all be in the recipe on the podcast page if you guys want to check it out. So anyways, and over the years, even in the past, I do not have a gluten intolerance. I'm not a real big fan of bread, just because I'm not. I prefer to eat other things. But for those who do want to possibly try this, in the past, like years ago when I tried these different kicks of all like vegan, vegetarian, different flours and stuff, I did try it with 1/3 of cup of rice flour, 1/3 a cup of corn, and 1/3 a cup of cornstarch. And I mixed that instead of flour. And if I remember correctly, it turned out fine. So I take no responsibility, people, but give it a try. And like again, this was probably 10 years ago, because I think all 3 of my kids were still living at home, and my oldest son hasn't been at home now since 2007. Oh my God, that's like 11 years. So then this has to be longer than that, that I tried it without I know I was weird even way back then, before it was in, right? Before it was really in to be weird, I was just weird. So, and I'm sure nowadays with all the cool flours and so many more choices, you guys could find something that would work even better. But anyways, cook them up. They are fantastic to freeze. They are amazing to freeze. They just, whatever it is about them, it keeps their texture. They're still nice and moist. And I've even, not that I recommend this, but if occasionally, because I forget to set the timer, or the timer goes off and I forget to get off my cute little butt and go take them out of the oven right away, if they do cook up to like a good 5 minutes longer or so, I'm not really sure how long I've left them, but if they do cook longer, then they are so resilient. That's what I love about these muffins. A muffin that works for Laurie's cooking style. They still aren't, like, they're not as moist, of course, if you take them out in the correct time, but if not, they are still moist. That's what I like about that. So anyways, on that note, oh my gosh, people. So where are we today? Do you know, I was on Facebook and I saw this quote, And it said, the wrong relationships just prepare you for the right one. And when the right one comes, you'll be thankful for others that didn't work out. Now, we could certainly bring this into the cooking. When we do this lovely cooking thing and we try different recipes and things don't turn out, it certainly shows us what to do or what works for us in the future, hey? And you know, the same thing is with relationships. And I know this seems like a really random thing, but this is just what's going to happen on my podcast, people. I'm going to go where I want to go. So you got to have fun with me with it. And yeah, I struggled or have struggled with some relationships in my life. Actually, I think it's more that I struggled with the whole concept of relationship, you know, with other people and even with myself. And I wonder how much struggling with other relationships really is a struggle with our own self. As I referred to on my show yesterday, when I talked a little bit about my journey with meditating and what that has created for me, it has created a beauty. It's such a gift that with what I've been choosing with meditation, and as often as I choose it and how I've been choosing it, it has created me to have so much of a kinder, gracious relationship with myself. And I find that I just naturally want to choose and create and be that with other people. And it is way easier. Like instead of doing something, you know, like trying to be the bigger person, that's always kind of annoyed me because none of us are bigger than another person. And it really is from a space of judgment when we actually say that. And so don't judge yourself if you've caught yourself saying that. Just look at it, actually, like really look at it. And if we're trying to be a bigger person, somewhere we've decided that we need to be bigger, better than someone else. And if you guys actually really tap into the energy of that, like really perceive when you say it, like I've got to be the bigger person here. Does it actually make you feel light? Does it feel like it's something that's creating greater? Does it make you feel expansive in your world, in your body? And it's okay if you can't tap into that. That wasn't something I could recognize myself when I first started with this. And it's a muscle I'm still growing even more. But what I noticed is that I desire to be greater than I know that I can be, or that I choose to be, or that I have been. Like I want to choose something because it actually makes me feel better. It feels congruent with who I be. It's aligned with who and how I like to show up in the world. It doesn't have anything to do with other people. It doesn't make me better than them. It doesn't make me worse than them. It doesn't make them better or worse than me. It's just when I step into my own world and create more of a relationship with myself, and I look at this and say, you know, how I'm showing up here, is this how I desire to show up? And I can see many places in many relationships in my life where I wasn't a fan of how I showed up. Sometimes it was pretty messy. And you know, the parts that where it was really the hardest was that I wanted something different and I didn't know how to do it. And so I would try something and it would maybe make things messier. And then I would judge myself for it. And then I'd go more into the wrongness of myself over it. And then it would just go down the rabbit hole. You know what's really funny? That's one of the things I actually love about cooking and food is you can actually liken so much of this. Like something seems really personal when you think about it with people. So if you go to a smorgasbord, right? And you've got this smorgasbord full of all these different dishes. You know, you've got fried chicken and you got Chinese food and you got Asian food and you got East Indian food, and then you've got French fries and hamburgers and, you know, all that stuff and Jello, maybe fruit dipped chocolate, like whatever. And you know that every time you go there, well, you may want to have the same thing. But then another time, you are going to, you may have Asian food every time you go there for 5 times, and then all of a sudden you're kind of like tired of it, and then you go off to have hamburgers. Or maybe every single time you go there, you're going to have a little bit of everything. And you're going to have a little bit of the Asian food, and then like a spring roll or salad roll or something, and then you're going to have some fried chicken, and then you're going to have some wonton soup, and then you're going to have some chocolate dipped fruit. That would be me, to have all of that. Got to have a little bit of everything. What if that's what it's actually like for us with people? What if there are times when we're going to want Chinese food with a certain group of people for a really long time, and then all of a sudden we just want to have a change, and we've decided we go off to have Asian, or we're going to have French fries and hamburgers or something like that. And what if it's actually not wrong? Like, if you actually tap into the energy of that with food, don't you notice a really big difference? Holy, I didn't realize that this subject was going to get so fascinating and have so much information on it. I think I'm going to bring it up more again tomorrow. Yeah, because we are already at the end of the show today, and just, play with that concept. Play with the concept of relationships and food. It's fun for me. Anyways, we will talk to you again soon. Talk to you tomorrow, people. Thanks for listening.